Thank you, Chair. I can confirm you're live on YouTube.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for attending today's licensing subcommittee meeting. I will get to introductions in a minute. May I just first mention that you might want to consider turning your phones off. I said that very solemnly the last time I chaired this meeting, and 5 minutes later, off mine went. So, yeah, noted. And can I remind all parties now that this meeting is being recorded and streamed on YouTube, and by attending this meeting you are giving your permission to be recorded and streamed. If you do have any concerns or issues to this meeting being held in public and recorded, could you please let me know now? Okay, thank you. I would ask if all attendees not to interrupt members, officers or others whilst they are presenting their report. And when addressing the subcommittee for the first time, would you please state your name so that all those present and watching know who's speaking? And could you also please ensure you use your microphone, which you do by pressing the right-hand button to turn it on and then the right-hand button again to turn it off. But if you use it, then everybody can hear you, including those that are watching online or later on YouTube. So moving on to the main part of the meeting, which is the licensing subcommittee meeting of the Wednesday, the 23rd of April. Do we have any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Thank you. There is no urgent business I'm aware of. Are there any declarations of interest we should note? No, thank you. So this meeting is convened as the licensing authority for the Borough Council of Kings Lynn and West Norfolk under the Licensing Act 2003. The business is to consider an application for a premises license for the surgery Centrepoint Fairstead. I'll just stop briefly and welcome an extra attendee at the meeting. Of course, it's an open meeting. You're very welcome. Well, the majority of the meeting is open, but there will be a point later where we will consider going into exempt session, but at this stage you're very welcome. So to introduce myself, I am Councillor Jim Moriarty and I'm chairing this subcommittee meeting, and I have also Councillors Sandell and Ayres on my left and right who will be taking part in the decision process. We have legal officers James Arundel and Amy Pearce. We have the licensing officer Marie Malt, and we have the Democratic Services Officer Rebecca Parker. If I could ask the applicant please to introduce themselves and your representative.
Daminda Johal, and I'm the applicant.
Thank you.
Chesterton.
Thank you very much.
Daminda is commonly known as David, by the way. That's certainly how I've been addressing him.
Thank you.
And my name's Duncan Craig, and I'm here to represent the applicant. And just to be clear, David is the director of the applicant company.
Excellent, thank you. Can you just confirm for me that you are content that 15 minutes will be sufficient to present your case?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you both very much. If I can ask now the interested parties please to introduce themselves.
My name is Councillor Rob Colwell. I am the Norfolk County Councillor for Gaywood South Division, for which the premises is situated.
Thank you, Councillor Colwell.
I am Councillor Steve Everett. I am the ward member representative for Fairstead, where the application is.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Can you just both confirm if you are content that 15 minutes will be sufficient for each of you to make your case?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. So moving on then to the procedure, and I will invite the legal advisor to outline the procedure that we followed during this hearing.
Thank you, Chair. The procedure is set out in writing for anyone who needs to consult it at any point in today's proceedings, from page 6 onwards of the agenda pack. But in very short summary, the licensing officer will present her report, and following that, she will be available for questioning by the parties. The order of questioning will be the applicant first, then the interested parties, and in the order we have them listed, it's Councillor Everett and then Councillor Colwell. And after that, the panel. Once that's concluded, then the applicant's representative will have his 15 minutes. Questioning will be available thereafter, and the order of questioning for that is set out in paragraph 12, sorry, on page 7, but effectively it's licensing officer, followed by interested parties, followed by members of the panel. There are no responsible authorities making representations today, so the next step would be Councillor Everett, who would present his case. He will then be subject to questions if anyone has any. That's paragraph 14 on page 7. That's the licensing officer, then the applicant, and then the panel. But the interested parties cannot question each other in these processes. So that running order will apply to both of you. It will then be for each party to have 5 minutes to sum up their case if they wish to, and that will be the same running order as before. Save that again, the Councillor Everett, Councillor Colwell, there's no summing up from yourselves. It will be for licensing officer and then applicant. The panel will then probably ask everyone to leave the room so they can deliberate. The legal officers, myself and Amy, and the Democratic Services Officer will remain in the room. I'll be there simply to provide, and Amy will simply to provide legal advice. We won't take part in the deliberations themselves, and any relevant advice I will make public on your return. Democratic Services will then be in the in the capacity you would expect of note taking and things, and we would hope to be able to summon you back within a reasonable time today. But if it becomes apparent that further time will be needed than today, then we'll make sure to let you know so you're not hanging around too long. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I just clarify, confirm for you that the members of the subcommittee have read all the documentation that we've been supplied to us, and that at any time during the hearing, the legal advisor or the licensing officer may be asked to offer advice, or may offer advice to us as proceedings continue. So I will now invite the licensing officer to present the report to our subcommittee, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everybody. My name is Marie Moult. I'm the licensing officer. Today, members are requested to consider an application for the grant of a new premises licence for the surgery on Centrepoint, Fairstead. The applicant's name is Waken Chesterton Limited. Premises licence is required under the Act for the sale of alcohol in which this application relates. A copy of the application form submitted is attached to the report as Appendix 1, which is available on pages 26 through to 39. And if granted, it would allow the premises to operate for sale of alcohol by retail off the premises only from Monday to Sunday from 8 AM until 9 PM. With any off-sale licenses, there are mandatory conditions. There are 4 relative to this application, one of which is that no supplier of alcohol should be made when there isn't a designated premises supervisor. Another, every supply of alcohol must be made or authorised by a person who holds a personal licence. There must also be an age verification policy adopted and in place at the premises, and alcohol cannot be sold for less than the permitted price, which is a very complicated calculation. In section D on page 10. In addition to those mandatory conditions, the applicant has offered some conditions within the operating schedule of the application, one of which is to have a CCTV system maintained and operating at the premises, which enables continuous recording for a period of 28 days, staff to be trained on that system and footage to be available upon reasonable request. Another, all staff must receive regular training in the Challenge 25 age verification scheme. records kept on the premises and signage displayed relative to that scheme. Another, the licence holder shall maintain records of all refusals of sale of alcohol and any other incidents that occur at the premises in a book to be kept on the premises and made available for inspection if requested. Signs shall be displayed in prominent positions requesting that customers show due consideration of neighbours when entering and leaving the premises. And all staff must receive regular training in crime prevention, conflict management, responsible alcohol sales, and how to recognise and appropriately handle situations where children may be at risk. Again, records to be kept of those training interventions at the premises. There have been no representations from any of the responsible authorities which are consulted as part of the application process. Namely, those are Norfolk Constabulary, Norfolk Fire Service, Norfolk Trading Standards, Norfolk Safeguarding Children's Board, Public Health, Community Safety and Neighbourhood Nuisance, Planning, Environmental Health, the Licensing Authority and the Home Office Alcohol Team. However, there are 9 representations from other persons to consider, 8 of which are objections and 1 is in support of the application. And copies of all of those representations are attached to the report as Appendix 2, which are available on pages 40 to 54. The applicant is responsible for advertising the application by a notice on the premises, a public notice in a newspaper, and the Borough Council also advertises the application on the website for the duration of the consultation period. Attached within the bundle is a plan showing the layout of the premises, which is at Appendix 3 on page 55, and also a plan showing, where possible, the location of the objectors to the application. It's on page 56, so right at the end of the agenda. I've included after this some extracts from our licensing policy and also some extracts from the section 182 guidance, which may assist members in making their determination. And all that leads me to request is that members have regard to the representations received and consider the application, the report, and take such steps as you consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Those steps could be to grant the application under the terms and conditions applied, to grant the application with conditions that the subcommittee considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, or to reject all or part of the application. Subcommittee are reminded that full reasons for their decision must be given, as both the applicant and persons making representations have a right to appeal against that decision to the Magistrate Court. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So I could ask the applicant or agent if they have any questions on the report.
No, thank you, Chair.
Do either of the interested parties have any questions on that report? Okay, thank you. Colleagues, do we have any questions on the report?
I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So I'll then move on to the applicant's opportunity to present their case.
Thank you very much. I visited the premises, I think, in applications such as these where concerns are raised by local residents in terms of concerns they have about their own community. I think it's important that somebody like myself who's coming here to make representations on behalf of the applicant has a look for themselves. And so I met David at 9:30. I saw the premises to which this application relates. We went into the Morrisons and then we looked at the 2 schools. And I think it's right to say that the primary school is situated very close to both businesses. I'd say it was pretty equidistant to both. There's probably maybe a 10-metre difference. And then there's a secondary school that is situated, took us about 4 minutes to walk there, did it? You say about 4-minute walk from the premises. Premises itself appears to me, for what it's worth, looks like it was purpose built as a GP surgery. Looks to me like it's about my age, mid-50s, sort of early 70s, late 60s. I think it would have been built looking at it. And I understand the concerns of people in the local area that they'd lost a facility that was once obviously close by and would have involved medical professionals that they knew and trusted. I understand from David that the GP surgery itself has been deemed unfit to serve that purpose. I don't know the reasoning behind that, but I think it's fair to say, irrespective of the merits of this application, I don't think it's going to be a GP surgery again. And so I guess one is then compelled to ask the question, what else can that building possibly be, given its location? I think it'd be right to say David's business, if you're minded to grant the application, will serve the local community, no question about that, rather than be a place for people who are passing through. Some people may think competition is always a good thing, but we are here obviously to determine the merits of this application based on, I guess, the application itself, and also David, because ultimately he's the person that's going to deliver that license or not. So just to give you a bit of background on David, he's been in the trade all his life. His parents owned a shop in Chesterfield, and he's certainly been involved in this type of operation for about 20 years. He is in the business of buying properties such as these and converting them into convenience stores, licensed convenience stores. I think this is about your 15th now that you've done. He does intend to move here for a period. He's obviously down as the proposed DPS on the application form, and he will do what he normally does, which is to stay for a period of three months thereabouts, run the business himself, and once he is happy with the way the business is operating, then he'll take a step back and appoint a DPS, but he'll still have oversight of the business himself. But there'll be somebody else who will have day-to-day control of the operation at that point, but certainly for at least 3 months, or for such as time as he's comfortable. He's investing money in the premises. It's important to him that it runs itself in a way that's lawful and responsible, because that's in his commercial interest. He does work with One Stop, which is part of the Tesco group. They have quite a structured compliance regime, and area managers that visit the shops on a regular basis. And so I think hopefully you can draw some comfort from the fact that there is an infrastructure to ensure regulatory compliance within the business model which he intends to operate from these premises. I'll just briefly, I'm conscious of my time limit, I'll briefly, if I may, take you to the operation. I know your licensing officer has helpfully very well put together a report, by the way. Licensing officer has pointed through, but I just want to go through the conditions. Page 35, please. Sorry, I should have done that first. So your own statement of licensing policy 17.1 and what the section 182 guidance of paragraph 1.16 specifies what conditions should be. They should be enforceable, proportionate, appropriate, tailored to the type of premises. And I would maintain that the type of conditions here are entirely appropriate for what is going to be a convenience store with the ability to sell alcohol, namely CCTV system, incident book and refusals book, staff training, matters around public safety, and perhaps most importantly, in terms of some of the representations that have been made, a Challenge 25 policy. And so we all obviously have concerns around children buying alcohol, and it's important that any licensed business it deals with that challenge in a responsible way. What I will say, I've got a couple of modifications. I did get the opportunity to speak to Councillor Everett before, just for reasons of time, we didn't get a chance to speak to Councillor Colwell. Just a couple of modifications to the application, which you may welcome. One is to extend the Challenge 25 policy to deliveries. So any delivery provider, my client has said in his representation, that he made, which is at page 53, about he intends to do deliveries, which will obviously assist people who have limited mobility in the area, but to extend that Challenge 25 policy to deliveries, because as things stand, the Challenge 25 only tends to operate at the point of sale in terms of interface.
Oh.
But at the point of delivery, that challenge has to be made as well. The way the Licence Act was framed in 2003 didn't envisage all this online stuff. It needs updating, frankly, in that respect. I won't bore you with the licensing law lecture on that. But the way to deal with that is to require age verification. So we would simply say any delivery provider is required to have an age verification policy at the point of delivery. The other condition, because again, I didn't get a chance to discuss this with my client till this morning. One of the concerns that's been raised by one of the objectors is to say, well, Morrison's is a convenience store. This is going to be an off license. Well, it isn't. It's going to be the same. And my client is perfectly content that there's a condition on there that no more than 25% of display space is dedicated to alcoholic products. So he's perfectly content to volunteer that at this stage. He's got no reason whatsoever that he wants to descend into any more than that. It'll simply be a situation, as we're all familiar with, of going into a shop and being able to buy alcoholic products in conjunction with normal groceries. He's not looking to turn this into an exclusive off license, and that just doesn't fit within his business model in any event. I don't know how I'm doing for time.
Okay.
You're fine.
All right, got another what, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Right, I'll just go through. I'm not going to pick them to pieces. I hope I've addressed a lot of the concerns that have been raised. I just make a couple of points. There's a lot of speculation in a lot of these objections. I'm not criticising them, but obviously I've got to do my job here. The case of McCool and Rushcliffe is clear that hearsay is perfectly permissible in these proceedings, but we shouldn't descend into, I think the case is gossip, speculation, or innuendo, I think is so I'll just make the point. Lots of people have expressed concerns here, but it's not evidentially based, and it certainly doesn't make any reference to the standard of the applicant or the application. It's raising concerns that they have about the wider area. And I'm not dismissing those concerns at all, but please just, I'm professionally obliged to remind you we're dealing with this particular application. Your own statement of licensing policy says that 3.2, every application be dealt with on its own merits, and that anyone can make an application at any time. That is, by the way, standard wording in any statement licensing policy. There must be some template somewhere, because they all say that exact same thing. Just make the point as well that I do a lot of these hearings, and this is local democracy in action. People are absolutely entitled and rightly raise concerns about an application such as this, because alcohol can have a detrimental impact on wider society. But I again am duty bound to point out no responsible authorities have made any representations, which means that Norfolk Police believe that this applicant and this application is structured in such a way that it won't undermine the licensing objective. Same goes for your environmental health, same goes for your licensing authority. And so I'll make that point, and that is actually reiterated in paragraph 9.12 of the section 182 guidance, which says that responsible authorities are the people you should look to as your main source of advice, and they're all happy with this application and this particular applicant. There's quite a lot of reference in these representations to need and the need for these premises, and again, that's not a consideration for this committee. And that's enshrined in 14.19 in the section 182 guidance, which says that need is not, I have it here somewhere, I'm going to filter my way through this, this is not a matter, need is not a matter for licensing authority in discharging its licensing functions or for its statement of licensing policy. We're here to deal with this application as it stands. I have to, again, Councillor Colwell, he'll be able to cast some light on this, but he does quote some Norfolk Police figures from September, October and November and December 2025, I presume that means,
2 minutes. Yeah.
I presume, thank you. I presume that means 2024, but I'm sure, yeah, okay. I did actually try and contact Norfolk Police to cast some light on these, perhaps give a bit more context on these figures, but they weren't able to do that. But again, your council has the ability to create cumulative impact areas. It doesn't do that, certainly doesn't do that here. So I just make that point as well. The fact that it's located near to a school, again, I would respectfully submit is not a relevant consideration. It's about how responsible these premises are run. And I think, obviously, you'll have questions for me, you'll have questions for David. You have a responsible operator here with a good track record, a well-structured, well-considered application here, and something that will hopefully benefit the wider community, giving them a level of choice that they currently don't enjoy. How have I done?
Spot on, I would say.
There we go. Not my first rodeo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So I'll turn to the licensing officer and ask if you have any questions at this stage of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually scribbling down questions and you were answering them as I was going along. So just to clarify, in light of the representations received,
Yes.
you're offering additional conditions.
Yes.
Which would be to add the Challenge 25 age verification policy to delivery.
Yes. At the point of delivery.
At the point, yeah.
Yes.
And to add no more than 25% of the premises to be dedicated to alcohol.
Display space, I think we'd have to cover that. Yes, please. Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Everett, do you have any questions at this stage of the applicant?
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, when you're saying at the point of delivery, so is that when they put the order through the relevant app, or is that actually when on the doorstep, so to speak?
Yeah,
just to simplify it, sorry.
At the doorstep.
Right,
Because obviously if
thank
you're taking an order down the phone,
Yeah.
you can ask someone if they're 18, but it's at the point where, it's so that they can do that ID check at the point of delivery. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
any other questions, Councillor Everett?
That's it on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Colwell, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, I just have one question. I wanted to make sure in relation to the secondary education establishment that you referred to, you mentioned a 4-minute walk. My understanding is it's a lot nearer than that. In fact, it's part of the community centre that's next to the school. Do you accept that?
So could I ask you to use your microphone, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
we walked today, we didn't realise that you could get through the community centre. We thought you had to walk right down the pathway, right to the end of the road. So
Oh,
there's,
the other way, is
I
that?
didn't know, I didn't realise that, the shortcut there.
We do accept that.
That's opposite the Morrisons then. Is that right?
But it did take us
Yeah.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Councillor Colwell, any other questions at this stage?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sandell, do you have any questions? of
I
the
do,
applicant?
just one. On your prevention of crime and disorder, it says install and maintain a high quality CCTV system covering all key areas. Will this be outside?
Yes.
And in actual fact, this is a politician's response. I'm really glad you asked me that question, because I completely forgot in my 15 minutes to mention that Councillor Everett did raise a concern about a hedge that's there, that people could consume drinks behind that hedge as it stands. My client's undertaken to reduce the size of that hedge so that effectively, I don't think you can condition that, by the way, I just don't think you can, but I'm giving the undertaking here, my client's going to reduce that hedge so that people won't be obscured looking from the shop. And yes, there will be camera coverage outside.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Ayres, do you have any questions at this stage?
Just one quick one, if I may. You've added the condition of Challenge 25, which is excellent. How would you go about monitoring that to ensure it was consistent in application?
So basically, we're going to have ongoing training course for all staff, and the incident books and refusal books are checked on a weekly, daily basis if there's any problems. All staff will be trained fully in that sort of area, basically. And through the One Stop, they provide us with a lot of information and online courses as a part of the whole portfolio, which then the BDMs will come and check and sign those things off every time they come into the store, which is on a weekly basis.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions, if I may. So looking at the plan,
Yes.
So I take it that the circle with the two lines that are at the front of the store, they are the cameras that refer to the CCTV. So they're looking from the left-hand corner and the right-hand corner towards the entrance. And those are the ones that you're looking to, you were referring to when you said there will be outside coverage of CCTV.
There's 4 cameras altogether externally.
Yep.
So one on each side, and then that's the entrance. There's one looking that way, and there's one looking that way, and there's one that way, and there's one looking that way.
Okay. And that's
I didn't see that on the map.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was everything
the
basically.
hedges that were, there was concern expressed about some hedging.
The hedging is basically runs along here. So we're going to bring that down to about 600 mil height wise, or a bit higher. It depends what the law allows in case you fall over it or something. So somewhere down here somewhere.
Sorry, we've been playing live, but thank you very much. That was very useful. May I ask, also on the plan, and forgive my ignorance, at the back of the store, there's reference BH. It's not mine, is it? There's reference to BH on the plan. What does that stand for, please?
That's the storeroom, back of house.
Back of house.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Mention was made of, I don't know if it's Tesco's or some other body coming in every 3 months to look at, so that they'll be looking at the books, looking at the record books for the sales that are being turned down, accepted, things of that sort.
Yeah, so we have the BDM, which is the business development manager. He or she comes in on a weekly basis, has a look for everything, and if we've got any issues and things, they're outlining them. But obviously, if the staff standards aren't right, etc., they're going to bring these to our attention because we have to keep to certain store standards and things like that. So everything is looked at on a weekly basis.
Okay, thank you. And forgive me, it's my ignorance. I'm not very familiar with the delivery service. I had pictures of Tesco vans. Clearly, that's probably not what we're talking about. Are we talking about Deliveroo? Do all of these companies that you might be using to do your deliveries, do they currently already have policies in place in your experience elsewhere, and therefore you'll simply be using those with policies, or is that something you'll be exploring and ruling out any delivery service which doesn't have a 25 policy?
So with the one stop, all the deliveries are done through their website. So whichever store is in the country, it's all linked to either Uber Eats or Deliveroo, and it all goes through that one sort of funnel, and it finds a local store in the area.
Oh,
that makes
I
sense.
see.
So
Okay.
it's quite a big thing. And on the app, the age, if you are ordering alcohol on the app, it'll ask for the ID, etc., things like that. So you can't order at that point either. And then we're going to double check it to make sure the guys that work for Deliveroo have the policy in place where when they deliver the actual item to the doorstep, they ask for the passport or the driving license, again, such twice.
Okay,
that
and
makes
that's
sense.
made obvious to the purchaser when they buy the alcohol or whatever they're buying online. They know they would be anticipating that check coming with the delivery.
Yes.
Yeah, but all those big boys like Deliveroo and Uber Eats all have, it's all enshrined. There's
Okay.
verifications. They're all over it, frankly, because they've got to be, for obvious reasons.
Great. Thank you very much. So we're now moving on to the interested parties to address the subcommittee. And I think the monitoring officer said it was going to be done with alphabetical. No, not alphabetical. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the applicant and me had a brief conversation, obviously for the interests of, yeah, that word I can't think, for the interest, thank you. Me and the applicant had a quick conversation before here, just obviously my concerns raised to me by the residents of Fairsted. It's nice to acknowledge the applicant has made some concessions saying that 25% maximum floor space dedicated to alcohol, which is good, and also increasing the CCTV coverage and also prevention of public nuisance hiding behind hedge, etc. Now, the main concern that the residents came to me with is nothing that is of the fault of the applicant. Essentially, we want the GP surgery to come back. Well, now that's obviously not going to happen. Even the CQC has said it's not going to happen. So, yeah. Now, concerns I have been basically is the close proximity of educational establishments in the area. Now, it is a case that you've got your local primary school very close by. Obviously, we want to prevent alcohol being underage sales, which I say I have acknowledged the applicant's going to have an extensive challenge 25 system to counter that, but it still the close proximity does raise the concern of exposure. So even if you are saying, even if you have got the challenge 25, they still could be exposed to it. And then also, it's at the moment there's quite a space of crime going on in the first area, and I believe that having another facility that sells alcohol could fuel this crime. But obviously, these are coulds, mights, and maybes, but it still needs to be taken into account. And ultimately, do we need another location selling alcohol in the area? And I would say no. That's my reasons, and also that's what the residents have said essentially. And there are a lot of the objectors have basically mentioned cases of what's been happening in that area, and I say, as it is my belief that having another place that's selling alcohol is probably going to add to this already extensive crime and antisocial behaviour that's going on.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So I will ask the licensing officer if you have any questions of Councillor Everett, please.
One really, but it has been said, and it's within the report. Are you aware that the need for licensed premises is not a matter for the licensing authority? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And does the applicant have any questions? Okay, thank you then. Yes, Councillor Sandon.
I do. So when I first found out about this application via social media, the newspapers reporting it, I thought it was just for an off-licence application, probably like many, I would presume. Since reading the application, I realised this is a small convenience store. Do you now, having the full facts about this application, offering home delivery of groceries, working with the community, the conditions that have been added by the applicant, do you think it would be detrimental to grant the licence still?
Obviously got to be honest on this one. When I did see this application coming in, first thing, I didn't realise I wasn't informed that it was going to be a one-stop. And I think a lot of the social media publications were, it's going to be an off-licence, we don't need an off-licence, and I can't answer for the objectors, but they do seem to be framed in the sense of we don't need another off-licence. There's nothing about the 75% of non-alcoholic sales. So I have got to be honest on that one. Again, I still got to represent the views of my residents, but I am kind of more to the side of that. I'm a little bit more happier with it, if you see what I'm saying. I've got to be honest. So
yeah, no, that's fine. I totally agree. I don't think social media or the newspapers have helped this application at all, especially for your residents when they purely see an off licence. So I agree. Yeah.
Councillor Ayres?
Yes, could I just ask clarification, Councillor? You're aware and you've accepted that need is not an item for consideration in this application. Your reference to yet another, if I could paraphrase for you, in the area, do you define that as need or not as need? How do you see that?
I would say on that one that yes, need's not a consideration. However, what is a consideration is whether having an additional location that sells alcohol is going to add to the current antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, thank you. And I see there's facilities there already. What, another one? Thank you.
I'm going to see if I can frame this as a question. You mentioned that a compromise, a condition had been offered that sales of alcohol would only be other sales would be 75%. But would you accept the fact the offer is that the space in the store only 25% would be for alcohol, not that there would be any limit on the amount sold? Because it could be 100% and it could be 0%. Do you accept that?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. I'll rephrase my comments earlier to say that happy with 25% of floor space is just the floor space. It's not going to be, well, you can't buy this tin of beer because you haven't bought 75% of non-alcoholic goods. Yeah, I see where you're coming from on. So it's floor space, not 25% of transactions.
Display space.
Just yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. I've already introduced myself as the county councillor for Gaywood South, and the surgery being in my division. I have had, just as we've heard from Councillor Everett, considerable correspondence from residents on the issue. And as we've heard, local media have been interested in that and reflected those community concerns on more than one occasion. The application is on the main through route to 2 schools, at least at Centre Point, Fairsted, as we've heard, as well as there is the sixth form centre. And for the avoidance of doubt, I still strongly oppose this application. I'm really pleased that the applicant and his barrister were able to spend half an hour this morning at the site, so they were able to see for the first time. I appreciate the applicant doesn't live in the area, but I do live in the area. I know the area incredibly well. My best friend at the time, Davey, lived on the estate. His mum was my childminder. I lived across the road. I went to school walking this route for many years, a stone's throw from Centre Point. I went on as a student to have a Saturday job at the Page Pharmacy on the shopping precinct, as it was then. I also then had an evening job at the Golden Fish Bar, which is next door to where this application is. So I know the area well. I've seen issues in the area, and I know the problems, unfortunately, through my work as a domestic violence solicitor in Kings Lynn, that alcohol can have on families and communities. So when people contacted me, I felt it was important to represent their voices today. I even purchased my first house 300 metres from the shops, and I've seen those problems. So I want to address the concerns under the headings, if I may, first of all, of the prevention of crime and disorder. The community is already experiencing significant elements of crime and antisocial behaviour, as we've already heard. And Fairsted is actually recognised as an area of urban deprivation. According to Norfolk County Council, it's actually in the top 10 of most deprived areas in the county. So I think there's concern of what alcohol establishment would do in the proximity to those schools. Alcohol abuse, mental health issues that come from it, sadly, high levels of domestic violence, as we've heard. There is a history of crime and disorder in the area, and for Norfolk Police, this area is actually known on their map, on their website, as Gaywood, Fairsted and Reffley. So it's not incredibly useful to take the initial stats, but their website has a very useful map. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you can zoom in into areas. So what I did when I was looking at this is I zoomed into the Fairsted area and thought I will look within half a mile of the proposed licensed premises. And that's where these figures come from, if there was any confusion. And thank you to my colleague here for referencing my typographical errors with regards to those. So we hear that 89 crimes reported in September, 76 in October, 67 in November, December 75, January 47. And actually since my written submission, February 2025 data has become available, showing a further 41 crimes. I was interested, however, in an even closer proximity to the licensed premises and cross-referenced it to within 100 metres over the 12-month period, and the available date was February 24 to February 25, 104 crimes. It was useful to see in the Lynn News this week, Superintendent Sonia Humphreys, who is the District Commander for West Norfolk and Breckland, is being quoted as saying, geographical areas where there is deprivation do unfortunately see higher levels of drug and alcohol misuse, which perpetuates the cycle of continued poor outcomes in health, education, employment opportunities. It is well documented that drug and alcohol misuse impacts on crime and antisocial behaviour. And then she goes on to say, we need to ensure that there are careful considerations to socially responsible actions by all agencies. Well, I'm really grateful to Norfolk Police for their efforts in trying to tackle crime and disorder on Fairfield. And I am aware and take part in their regular SNAP meetings where local people and councillors raise concerns and set priorities for police to focus on. I believe the police are doing everything they can within their budgets. However, introducing another alcohol outlet like this in such a location, I would fear, will contribute to further crime and disorder and the pressure on resources. I have had contact from residents saying that they don't want the area around Centre Point, Fairstead, to go back to how it was before, when they were frightened to go near the shops and it became almost like a no-go area when it gets dark. The fear is this off-licence will attract crowds of people or those drunk loitering outside, drinking, and this licensing authority must reject the application to prevent further disturbances and any increase the risks of disorder, including antisocial behaviour and violence. I have concerns over the type of establishment proposed. It's going to be late at night and a dedicated nature to serving alcohol. And even to me, 25% is a huge amount of volume of area, which I consider could increase crime and disorder in the area. Whilst the applicant has indicated that there will be CCTV in and around the premises, there is a distinct lack of CCTV in the local area. And it appears that the cameras will only be facing on the shop front immediately outside, not on the grass area, the area around the car park, the path. There's a large area of benches and a concreted area. And I am concerned about this increased foot traffic and potential conflicts actually being created there. And I fear that granting a licence here risks disrupting local community stability and encouraging an increase in crime and create an unsafe environment. And this licensing authority must realise that it poses a public safety concern and you have the legal basis to refuse. The other area I wish to focus on is that of protecting children from harm. The proposed licence for this off-licence is incredibly close proximity to very sensitive locations in the community used by children, not just the school. Children and vulnerable young adults could be exposed to drunken and lewd behaviour. I wish to highlight the proximity, if I may, of the proposed off-licence to the following sites that involve children or upon which children rely. First of all, we have the Churchill Park Academy and the Sixth Form Centre. This is a specialist SEN education provision, newly opened last year for 16 to 19-year-olds. Also within 10 metres is the Fairstead's First Steps Nursery Community Centre and Children's Centre. Now, at the moment, you can attend both of these educational facilities without having to go into too close a proximity to the current alcohol licence area known as Morrison's. It is possible to attend, in effect, from the south, from the north, and enter those. We also have within 45 metres, Centre Point's small community park and seating area at the front. Within 60 metres is Fairstead Primary School. And you often see parents congregating outside in the mornings and when the children are collected. Within 50 metres is Weld Pharmacy and also the Fairstead Community Shop. Within 140 metres to the south is the Fairstead Play Park, and then within 200 metres is Churchill Park Academy. Now, unlike the Morrison's Daily Store, which is up in the main shopping precinct, this proposed site is away from that. It's setting a new precedent. It's near the car park, on the main thoroughfare to get to and from the primary school. It's where parents park. It's where parents congregate, next to the school gates, on the concreted area and grass. Why should we risk children mingling with drunks and day drinkers outside the store there? We have already seen from the written submissions provided to this council that there are problems outside Morrison's of people queuing for alcohol in the mornings, with sick having to be cleared up, with an incident of a lady half naked wandering around outside with drug paraphernalia. Why should we risk the possibility of children having to pass or feel uncomfortable by witnessing antisocial behaviour? If I could maybe refer you to the map at the very end of the papers that part of the pack. From that map, you can see that the location, as I've just described, near to the car park, the main through road from east to west, where people will travel with children that are walking to get to the school. We already know that this happens outside the Morrisons, so we can only presume that it is high probability that similar incidents will occur outside the one-stop Tesco's. Am I about 10 minutes?
Yeah. 5 more.
The proposed premises would be located unacceptably near to schools, playgrounds and other areas where children are commonly present, and the sale of alcohol could potentially expose children to harmful behavioural situations. The advertising of alcohol in shop windows is also of a concern to some residents that have contacted me, or on boards even outside adjacent to the school, raising further exposure and concern of exposure of alcohol to children. And I worry about other comments that have been mentioned about broken glasses in the proximity to this area where children and parents wait. Child protection is important, and this authority must ensure that children's safety is not compromised. The licensing authority is obliged to ensure that children are protected from harm in environments where alcohol is sold. And I would submit that given the proximity of 10 metres at the shortest distance between the site to the school area and the community building, it's possible for the applicant to it's impossible for the applicant to demonstrate adequate precautions that can be put in place. Granting the licence would increase the risk to children, and you're able to lawfully refuse this. Once they've left the premises, with their alcohol, yes, the DPS can call the police, but they can't be there all the time. And what impact also on the public purse? When the Lynn News headline regarding the application is machete attacks, street fights and day drinking, surely you must stop and think, we should listen to the community that live here and back them and their concerns. It also mentions the community shop. Now, this is a charity shop supporting people locally, selling clothing, toys, but it also acts as a mini food bank. Well, they've indicated that they're fearful that more alcohol availability will mean more problems in the area, and they're getting to the stage where they've almost had enough. And on their Twitter account, I think last week, they mentioned that they were wondering if they were going to even close. And that's something that you should be taking into consideration. They have been instrumental in getting the petition signed by hundreds of local people against the off licence. Thank you, Chair. I hope my submission was useful.
Thank you very much. So I will ask the licensing officer if you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a few. The last one you've mentioned, a petition. I haven't seen a petition. Have you got a petition?
So I understand that the community shop began running a petition because of the number of people that were upset about it. I'm not sure if it was submitted. I don't know.
I haven't received a petition. Has anybody else? No. No. Oh, okay. A couple of other things. You mentioned lots of figures of crimes on the estate and then within 100 metres from the shop. Do you have a breakdown of whether any of those were linked to alcohol or a licensed premises at all? Just the figures as a whole?
All I used was the data from the Norfolk Police website. I believe that it is possible for you to break it down not into licensed premises. I believe it is possible to break it down into antisocial behaviour, violence, sexual violence. So yeah, you can break it down but it doesn't mention. I think it's quite well known. Is it Mulberry as being the point? I think which refers to the whole of Centre Point.
Okay, thank you. The other thing was, when you mentioned about having more than one premises leading to crime and disorder, if there was one premises selling alcohol or 10 premises selling alcohol, do you not think that the same people would want to buy it, or do you think that would create more people wanting to buy alcohol?
I think it comes down to location, location, location. At the moment, we are aware that the shop selling alcohol is within a precinct. This is separate, and the point I was trying to make is, to be honest, if they want to open up next door to Morrison's, that might be a slightly better. The problem is the location of where it is, the proximity of people having to walk. At the moment, parents say, Rob, I can avoid the area if I want to, because I don't have to go past where people congregate and the alcohol. To wait for the children at school. Parents kind of wait on the grass area and the concrete outside. They don't have to go past the area if they don't want to. If they can drop the kids and then go to Morrison's, but at the moment they don't have to allow the children to go past. Here, unfortunately, we're taking away potentially that possibility to prevent children from seeing that potential lewd behaviour or strong language.
Okay, just one more thing. When you talked about alcohol being taken away and crime happening around the area, within the Section 182 guidance, it does say that a premises licence holder can only obviously be responsible for ensuring that they follow the legislation, don't serve to people that are drunk and underage and all the rest of it. How do you think a premises should be? Why do you think a premises should be responsible for what happens away from the premises?
I don't think they should be responsible, but my concern is that they can't stop it. They can't do anything. That's the point I was trying to make. They'll phone the police, and one would hope that there was police that could be around or get there as soon as possible. But that's you've made my point for me. Thanks.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have any questions, please?
Yeah, just a couple. You've given quite a lot of distances here, Councillor Colwell. What would you say the distance was between this premises and the Morrisons?
I can use the way I calculated all these was I used the Google distance app, so I can give you the exact figure if you'd like. So if I go from, say, the front door. So obviously this is...
Rob, is your mic on? I can't tell.
Sorry. So this is from the Google. Obviously it's not a walking distance. This is as the bird flies, as it were. But according to this, it is 100 feet. But yeah, 30 metres, yeah.
The other thing is you've mentioned about the sales of alcohol being late at night. Are you aware that my client is applying for 2 hours a day less than the Morrisons, and is that something you would welcome?
Yes, it is a different time from Morrisons, yeah. But I guess the point being that at the moment, if people wish to avoid walking late at night near an area where there may be crowds or people consuming or purchasing alcohol, whatever, they can do so. Whereas we're restricting where this site is, we're restricting their ability to get to the car park, to the electric car chargers and the like. So that was the point I was trying to make.
So are you saying?
Sorry, go on.
So are you saying the 2 hours less you don't welcome it, or that you do?
Well, it's welcome, but ideally it wouldn't be there at all.
Thank you, Councillor Sandell.
I do have some, after some of the points, Rob's, I've got 3 small questions. Okay, so on your crime figures, I had a quick look at the police.uk map of crime that a resident had actually put into an objection. So had a quick look at it for the Gaywood infested area. I looked at February 2025 and they've actually narrowed it down quite a bit. So violent and sex offences was 55, antisocial behaviour was 11, shoplifting was 11 and vehicle crime was 10. I then put in a postcode to which ward I represent and antisocial behaviour figures were 11. I don't have off licences within my ward. So that was quite an interesting stat. When the Morrison's Daily Store applied for their licence, were you contacted by residents on this application raising concerns about the sale of alcohol? Or do you think it was because it wasn't put out there on social media that it was an off licence?
I wasn't contacted by anyone. I don't know when they made the application. Could you know when they made? Was I a councillor? I've only been a councillor for a couple of since 2021.
I can't remember.
But I think it goes back to location is the answer really to that.
Okay. And just one more. Do you think that the applicant has gone far enough? I'm not sure the answer is yes now, but do you think the applicant has gone far enough in reassuring you of their intentions to challenge 25, train staff, keep records, and I do welcome the CCTV outside?
Oh, I must admit that the actual detail that they go into is very impressive about how they wish to, you couldn't ask the applicant to do any more, I don't think. But I guess when it comes back to his location, again, it just doesn't feel right. It's, yeah.
Councillor Ayres.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You furnished us with lots of figures and lots of statistics, which is all hard to take on board, I've got to be honest, not being a mathematician. Increasing the facility for people to purchase alcohol in a particular area, no matter how big the area is, do you think there's a limit to the number of people who would go out and buy alcohol? And said, let's take a hypothetical figure of, say, within a given area of 1,000, there's 50 people that would buy alcohol, say, hypothetical. Do you think that by increasing the number of premises that make available alcohol to the general public would change that number of people that would make it a habit to go out and purchase alcohol from your statistics?
No, but having spoken to someone who has had a license, one of these DPS licenses before, I'm aware that there is often concern of someone maybe being refused by one premises because they were felt to be drunk. There you go. I swear that's just water. And then trying their luck next door. Yeah. And they might not get lucky, but they might get lucky. So that's where that element of concern comes from.
I accept your point. Yeah, I've never been refused.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres. Councillor Colwell, you made quite a big, I'm asking this question because you made quite a big play on a quotation from a senior police officer and statistics and that sort. So I'm just wondering your view on why, as one of the responsible authorities, maybe the major responsible authority to be consulted, your view on the fact that the police did not choose to comment or come here and object today.
Yes, Chair. I want to be careful how I answer that question. And without wanting it to sound political at all, but I think we all know that many of our public services are underfunded, don't have the funds, the resources that they need. I guess we don't know whether or not there may have been a presumption, well, if we make a submission, then we'll have to send someone along. We don't have anyone. I don't know, but I do know we don't have enough police officers in Kings Lynn. I know that they are actively trying to recruit, for example. no doubt this would be dealt with at Wymondham. We're a large county. People often say, Rob, we're forgotten over here. If this application had been that side, maybe they would have had time. So I am being careful with what I say, but I hope that the County Hall based in Norwich, police based in Wymondham, yeah, it's a shame.
Thank you very much.
Can I provide you with a little bit more information about that? Norfolk Police are really good at responding to all applications. They consider all applications. This application was considered by the police and we received a no application, no representation. It was also considered by Neighbourhood Policing Inspector Ben Jarvis, the local inspector, and he made a point of saying no objection. So it isn't because they're understaffed.
Councillor Cole, will you feel free to come back if you want to?
No, well, I'm grateful for the information there. I guess there is a concern that maybe we are a bit forgotten over here, but thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
The other point on marathons, I've just had a look. It was in Coles before and had a licence from 2014, so it just transferred into a Morrison's. Okay.
So to confirm, Councillor Colwell would not have been in position there, so would not have been consulted or contacted by anybody on that. So I hope you're happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the summing up. So I'm going to invite the licensing officer first to sum up and just remind all parties, please do not bring in any new evidence. This is a summing up stage only.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So in summary, members, again, you're being asked to consider an application for a new premises licence for alcohol off sales at Centrepoint from Monday to Sunday to 8 AM till 9 PM. You've heard from the applicant who's offered a couple of additional conditions, and you've also heard from the people objecting to the application. Your paramount consideration is the licensing objectives, the 4 objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. You've got quite a lot of information within the agenda, extracts from the Section 182 guidance, which should help you when you're looking to make your decision. There are parts in there about obviously the need for licensed premises. If any conditions are to be placed, they should be evidence-based, that sort of thing. So obviously you can have a look through those. With the crime and disorder figures that have been mentioned, it's difficult to try and tie them down to licensed premises. It's a bit speculative. We don't really have anything from Norfolk Constabulary. We've just got figures. Obviously you need to put what weight you want on those. Remind you again that your options are to either grant the application as it's been applied for, adding in the additional conditions that have been offered, or to grant the application with more conditions that you find appropriate, or to reject all or part of the application. And also that there is a right of appeal to either party against any decision if they're not happy to the magistrates court. That concludes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now invite Councillor Everett, if you want to sum up.
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cole, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. In summary, I believe that this premises application is for an alcohol licence in the wrong place. This is about location. This is about putting children at risk as far as the community is concerned, with lewd behaviour, strong language being observed by people purchasing alcohol or being drunk in the local area. I ask that this licensing committee refuse this application for issues around protecting children from harm. And in relation to issues around crime and disorder, I'm concerned about what a further establishment would do to those figures in the local area, and especially for the crime in the and antisocial behaviour in the proximity to the school, cutting off a link to the school for parents to take their children to and from school easily. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I invite the applicant please to sum up.
Thank you very much. Just one point to clarify, in fact, it may be misunderstood. It's my first visit to the premises. It's not my client's first visit today. It's his 15th, apparently. So he's been assiduously assessing the local area, and that's important, of course. I mean, that's incredibly important. He has an understanding of the local area. Just make some points. I mean, Councillor Colwell has actually made some helpful concessions from our point of view. He's accepted the applicant couldn't have done any more. He's also accepted that there's no basis for if someone's refused in one premises, they're going to be served in another. There's no evidential basis, or for the fact that increasing the number of licensed premises in an area is going to increase the overall demand for consumption of alcohol. He's made reference to the location of the premises. I mean, I'm not 100 feet. Look, distances aren't my best thing. I would have guessed at 20 metres, 20 metres, 30 metres. They are sufficiently close in proximity. I would submit the notion that there's a discernible difference between the two. I just don't think bears any objective scrutiny, and certainly you can't make a determination on the basis something quotes doesn't feel right unquotes. We're here to deal with evidence. The guidance is clear on that. Paragraph 9.43, decision has to be evidence-based. The evidence you have is of a established operator with what's been conceded as being a well-structured and well-thought-out and comprehensive operating schedule. Somebody who wants to invest in the local area, employ people locally. The licensing regime is still a permissive regime, and what he's actually offering the local community is a building that's currently disused and empty. He wants to open it up and provide some healthy competition and provide a local service to local people. And I make the point again, the houses applying for are less than the Morrisons around the corner. Norfolk Police aren't here. If they had any concerns, they would be. And so for all those reasons, given the modifications I've provided, please invite you to grant the application as it now stands. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bear with me 1 second, please. So I'm going to at this stage ask the legal advisor to address the subcommittee on any outstanding matters.
I have none, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I, having briefly conferred with my colleagues, I think this will be taking some time to debate and consider all the issues that are put before us. So I'm not going to suggest necessarily that it's worth staying around for a decision, but I think we will make a preliminary decision, which will then be finalised, and we will do that in private session. We will only be accompanied by the legal advisor, who will advise us on the law, and the Democratic Services Officer for Administration Process. They will take no part in our decision, and the decision we will make will then be notified to you within 5 days and sent to all parties and published on our website. Is there anything for the monitoring officer? Anything else I should have covered, please?
You may want to. I think the one thing that I would normally tack on the end is just reminding parties of their rights of appeal. That either party in this, if they object to the decision, have a right of appeal to the magistrates.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. So, and thank you all for your attendance and the contributions you've made to the meeting today. I'm going to now look for the piece of law which says that we can move to an exempt session, so I couldn't find it a second ago. Okay, so at this stage, with thanks, I am going to close the meeting.